What do you do when your biggest opportunity collides head on with your worst fucking nightmare? That's what today's guest experienced. Today's guest is Chris Petefish, professional golfer, business owner, and entrepreneur. And 2 weeks before second stage of Q School, playing the best golf of his life, he woke up literally, physically unable to get out of bed, let alone swing a golf club. And in today's conversation, you're going to get the raw, vulnerable experience, what Chris went through physically, mentally, and emotionally to end up competing a mere 2 weeks later. This man has qualified for and played in the US Open. He's been on the Korn Ferry Tour. And what I love even more is he brings a depth of experience, not only as a professional golfer, but as a business owner and entrepreneur. And if you want to really understand what it takes, what reframes, what mental frameworks will allow you to shine your brightest and play to and achieve your potential, well, there are no shortage of hidden gems in today's conversation with our guest, Chris Petefish, who, again, professional golfer. He's a performance coach based in Georgia. He's a former Georgia Tech standout, all ACC academic selection, all-American scholar, and winner of the 2018 General Hackler Championship. And since turning professional in 2018, he's competed on the Korn Ferry Tour, qualified for the 2024 US Open, and he also runs Course of Action Golf, where he coaches players of all levels in course strategy, mindset, and performance using strokes gained analytics and mental conditioning frameworks. So without further ado, buckle up, get your note-taking devices ready, and please help me in welcoming Chris to the show. Chris, you've just successfully competed in the first stage of Q School, yet you suffer a pretty significant injury with less than 2 weeks until second stage. And you go on to battle out, and correct me if I'm wrong, and get T8 in that tournament despite being barely able to swing a golf club in that period, right?
Correct, yep.
Walk us through, what's the mindset, what's the mental framework to be able to move through that 2-week period and really be able to perform when it matters most?
You know, I'm glad you've asked that because I've been wanting to tell the story. It's a pretty wild one.
Yeah.
I remember, like, I was playing pretty decent, but at the same time, this was just after COVID happened. It was very difficult to get on the Korn Ferry because everyone was stuck in their mega 2-year seasons. And I was kind of at the point of like, man, if I don't take the next step, maybe it's just I'll do something different. Maybe I won't play professional golf. And because it had been probably 3-ish years of trying Q School, and I just missed second stage by 2 shots, and I missed it again by 2 shots, which is, it burns, but you were close. And, I kind of told myself, like, I'm going to play really free, unapologetic golf. And if this is it, this is it. And I play great at first stage. I come in 5th, but on the second to last hole, I felt, I shouldn't say like a pop, but almost a sensation in my neck and trap area. And it just felt like a rope. And I could barely take it past like my shoulder on the last hole. And I'm through by like 8 shots. All I have to do is just chip it down on par 3 and just get done. But I was in so much pain. And my next Q School, the second stage, was, I think, within 2 weeks. Yeah. And so I was a little worried, but I was hoping, like, when you're traveling all the time, like, there's always going to be little nagging stuff here and there. I've been pretty fortunate not to have any major surgeries or injuries. And I just remember, like, 2 or 3 days later, I tried to get out of bed and I physically couldn't do it. I might as well have been paralyzed. Like, just having to move my neck muscles to turn my head to get out from the pillow, it wasn't even doable. So I literally had to call my parents, like, you're going to have to drive and, like, get me out of bed because I couldn't move. And so I was just like, what do I do right now? Because I'm supposed to play golf in 10 days and tee it up. I can't even, like, get out of bed, let alone swing a golf club. And so it was a lot of scramble of, like, who do I need to see? A lot of panic of, how is this going to happen? Am I going to have to withdraw? And that's let alone just the prep that you probably should be doing for Q school. And that's how I got plugged in with Brian Yee. That motion stability probably saved my career, to be honest with you. He was a guy that was able to kind of diagnose what happened and get me able to like move a little bit. And so, yeah, mentally getting to second stage in California, which I flew all the way from Atlanta to California from my location, which like that's what you need. You need more travel when you can barely move. I hadn't touched a club. So this is 2 weeks later. I had not been able to even swing still. And I just went there thinking maybe by some miracle something's going to happen, but I at least need to try. And I play a practice round for like 6 or 7 holes. And I'm able to swing at like 70%. Like I'm barely getting through the ball. I'm missing everything right. I probably shot like 7, 8 over par. And the people I'm playing with in this practice are probably like, this guy has no chance. Why is he even here? I'm just hitting these wipey fades. And really just mentally, I had to go in problem solving mode. Like, I don't care what it looks like. I need to find a way to get this done. And because I just don't want to regret. Maybe I won't even be able to compete. Maybe I won't even be able to play more than 20 holes, but I want to be able to be like proud of myself that like I gave it everything I got. And so I remember like on the range the day before, I had to swing and physically just start walking toward the target. Almost like a Gary Player did way back in the day, where just hit and walk.
Yeah.
That was the only way I could swing normally, because it released the pressure off my right side of my neck if I was able to walk and continue like moving towards the target as I hit. And I literally played all 4 days hitting and walking, because that was the only way I could physically hit golf shots. And I think mentally it helped me, because truly the expectations were low. I'm having to change my golf swing the day before second stage of Q school. I'm in a position where I'm like, hey, I might as well just give this everything I have. And it took away all expectations. And I was just able to play a lot of free golf without playing from a place of fear. And yeah, obviously I finished 8th. I get through, which was miraculous considering I couldn't get out of bed. And, I go to Q school. Well, the thing about that was actually the last 2 or 3 holes was the only time I freaked out, because that was the only time where I felt like, oh, I have this and I could lose it. And that I didn't perform mentally very well during that final couple hole stretch, and kind of got it into the house. Granted, it was playing difficult, but still, I think that was also a good talking point. Like, hey, the moment I realized I could lose it, I'm having this, and this is going to be a great story, was like, like I have something to lose here. But yeah, obviously it was probably the craziest story that I've had in professional golf was, having that injury, battling, getting through, flying across the country, and then, getting through Q school, having status, and then ended up finishing like 80 something that year in the points list, which, got me to play the following year with, and then almost got my tour card the next season. So like none of that would have happened if it wasn't for that week.
Tell us about some of those, I'm going to use the description, potentially darker moments of self-talk, inner experience. Like in 2 weeks, I have an imagination. It wasn't suddenly, okay, I have no expectation. I'm free. I'm happy. I'm going to give it my best. I have an imagination. There was some part of devastation, frustration, sadness. Why me? Was any of that part of your experience that ultimately propelled you to get to that place of playing freely without expectation?
Yeah, I think partially. I mean, of course, when you're in that situation, you're in pain, you can't swing. There definitely is a freak out of like, why is this happening? Like, this couldn't be worse timing. Like, literally any other time than, the 2 months of when qualifying Q school is. But I think I've always been pretty good at of being able to process and just move on. I think that's something that golf teaches you. And it's like, I've been wired since I was a little kid. And it just like, because golf beats you up and you just have to move on, because the next result has no reflection of what the past one is. It's a new shot. It's a new probability. It's a new event. And I think you get burned by thinking too much on the past enough where like, you're going to teach yourself not to put your hand on the stove. And for me, I've been good at just whatever happened back then, I have to forget about it. There isn't a choice. And so I think a lot of my past and just what golf does to you in general kind of helped me go from like, this is the worst, I can't get out of bed, to like, I have to solve this problem. Like, it just is what it is.
What'd you learn about yourself during that stretch? Like, what really stands out all these years later? Like, wow, I really learned this or strengthened this character trait of mine.
Yeah, I would say when my back's against the wall, that's usually when I'm at my best. And so definitely a fighter. And that's actually something I've had to train with some sports psychologists too, is like, how do I try to increase the intensity and not just turn it on when I'm 2 shots out of the cut with 4 holes to go and I'll birdie 3 of the last 4, or I'm in danger of missing my card and then I turn it on and play great golf. It's like, how do you summon that sooner? So it's a double-edged sword, but I think I definitely learned that's like, yeah, like when my back's against the wall and my chips are down, like I'm going to come out swinging and hopefully I'll come on the right side.
I love that you share that, because candidly, a lot of the work I do with my clients is they operate with that belief. I call it a destructive mindset program, and I'm going to paraphrase a bit from your unique experience, but I only perform well when my back's against the wall. That is an overarching story I help a lot of my clients overcome. And I love to hear that you've dug into that. You're trying to find a way, how can I calibrate that same intensity, tenacity to actually prevent that situation, maybe get way ahead so I can continue to play my game. What have you learned about yourself, that way of thinking, to help you better turn it on and play well earlier in the tournament?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, it's a pretty loaded question. I could answer it a couple ways. I would say first, I've had to kind of train that, which has been fun. For example, like going onto a putting green, going through your full routine, hitting, let's say, an 8 to 10 foot putt, regardless of the outcome. Go read a book for 5 minutes, go on your phone, go sit in the car and meditate for 5 minutes, do something, and then come back and hit another putt, so that you're just not hitting putt after putt after putt with no consequences. Like, it feels much more important because there's scarcity. There's less putts being hit. And that's kind of helped me too, because when I feel like a lot of people practice in general, they just hit a million golf balls. And it's just like, what are we accomplishing here? And there just needs to be more intent and more intensity. If you can practice that more when it doesn't count, then it becomes more natural when it does.
Well said. Yeah. And that kind of is a nice segue into what I wanted to pick your brain about. You're really known in the coaching world. Obviously, it's a reflection of your playing capabilities and your approach to playing well. Play smarter, not necessarily work harder. What does that mean to you, and how do you embody that in your prep professionally?
Yeah, I think really understanding your game, what makes you tick, what your strengths are, and understanding, again, like the golf game better is just going to help people play, be able to perform at their peak. And so, through strokes gain and understanding the different, a lot of Scott Fawcett, like, where does scoring come from in golf? Like, I can really help people understand, like, where are they losing shots? How can they avoid bogeys better? How can they think of the game differently? And some of that may be mental. And it's like, I'm not a mental coach, but from a player's perspective, I can understand, because I've been there, whether it's junior players, college, amateurs that are trying to win their club champions. Like, I understand high stress situations and have been there. So it's like, I can relate to, like, yep, I have felt that before. Here's what worked for me. And kind of just be able to relate to players.
And I like what you said earlier, there's an intentionality to it. When you have that data to back up where you're struggling, where you're excelling, I imagine it allows you to put together a more precise and intentional practice plan to quickly, not only shore up your strengths, but turn your weaknesses into, either not so weak, neutral, or actually let them become part of your strengths.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think people get these preconceived notions that they're good at this or bad at this. And a lot of the numbers would either suggest differently, or if we just think about, like, whether approach shots with better targets or understanding, like, the probabilities of different putts and stuff, like, you can start to shape how people play and think and able to kind of free them up. So almost kind of a doctor in a way of just like diagnosing people's games and kind of their attitudes to different parts of it.
In your playing off season, how are you tackling distribution of time and energy between continuing to work on your strengths, amplifying them, or really bringing up your weaknesses? What does that approach look like between the two?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'd rather maintain my strengths and then try to improve my weaknesses. Just from a scoring standpoint, I for me, my iron play is my strength. So I want to make sure I'm cultivating that, and that's maintaining pretty level. Because when your strength starts to have high and ebbs and flows, then your scoring can really drop out. Whereas if you keep your strength and you understand what powers your game and keep that up, you're just going to be much more consistent. And, I think you can turn weaknesses into strengths, but there's so many aspects to the game. And it's just hard to perfect everything. It's just everyone has something they struggle with. Maybe unless you're Scotty right now, but it's just, I think you can, slowly increase your weaknesses, but make sure you keep your strength.
Yeah.
Sure.
And again, the undercurrent there is this working smarter, more intentionality, more diligence. You were one of the few players to not only shoot a bogey-free round, but a bogey-free tournament. What do you attribute that to, first and foremost? And then second, did you become aware of that at some point during the tournament? And if so, what was that inner dialogue like to finish the tournament?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. It's kind of, I guess, similar to pitching a perfect game. There's definitely this buzz a little bit around it once you go through 3 rounds. I would say I truly found the zone for a week. Yeah. And to me, the zone is when you have your peak physical golf game, everything's pretty much clicking, but you also have great strategy and discipline. You're picking correct targets. You're not always going to hit it perfect. This is just not possible, especially over 72 holes. You're going to have plenty of mishits, but you better be in control of where those mishits go and have good targets, but also pretty perfect, mental discipline. I'm talking almost a meditative flow. In a zone. So if you combine all 3 of those, you basically get the holy grail of golf, which I felt like I kind of got there for about a week. And, I just did a really good job of not being afraid to fail that week. I had almost came in last the week before in Chicago. I played terrible. And I came in there with just, again, a little bit less expectations, a little bit more grace. And I just felt a lot more at peace at where these shots were going to go. And meaning I was just felt confident that things were going to work out for me, whether they were or they weren't. I just wasn't going to overreact. I was going to be disciplined and just see where the chips fall. And it just happened to be an incredible ball striking week. I just played very well, but at the same time, mentally, that was as locked in and as I've ever been. But it was very a flow state. I think there's a difference between just being knuckle fists and really wanting it, but also golf being very much also flow. You can't force it. And so I think I was really able to balance that.
What'd some of that inner dialogue sound like those final few holes? Was there any added tension felt or any having to redirect your thoughts in those last couple holes?
That last hour, because I wasn't even thinking about the bogey free at that point.
Okay.
I probably didn't even recognize it. I maybe did after the 3rd round, but when I was in the middle of the final round, it was truly, I was just so in the moment of my targets and where I'm hitting these shots. The pressure definitely amped up the last 4 or 5 holes because I could see I was right around the lead or tied. And, I eagled 15, which, be honest, was a lucky break. It easily could have bounced right in the bunker. It rode up this hill and then went to 4 feet, made eagle, which, winning does require some luck too. But I just remember it felt like flying the last 3 or 4 holes. And I just totally trusted what I had. And I remember a chip, I hit a terrible drive actually on 16. It was this easy par 4 and missed it way left, miles left. But then I had a good recovery short of the green, probably a 30-yard chip. And it was one of those, if you went 3 steps past the hole, it was gone over the green, making double into a water hazard. But I just truly, instead of being in a position where before maybe I would have said, oh, let's be conservative here and make sure and protect. I was truly fearless in that moment. And I was just in total command of my routine in my headspace. And that was the most probably fun part of that, because I'd never been in that position before. I had a 3rd on the Korn Ferry, but I was probably 3-ish shots behind playing with Harry Hall, and he went on the win. But I'd never been in a position where like I'm leading on the 16th tee of a Korn Ferry event, and like my career could change. So that's a different kind of pressure. And so to be able to handle that and hit like great shots in the moment was pretty cool.
What'd you learn about yourself from that experience?
That mentally I could handle it. That I could handle that kind of pressure and really enjoy it. Like it was fun to me. Like obviously there's that feeling of your heart's kind of in your throat, but like I was embracing that.
I love that you shared that, because we all, whether it's on the golf course, in our professional or our personal life, we aspire to get to that next level of success. Yet you can't recreate the opportunity ahead of time. You have to be there. So there you are. I want to be here. I've worked hard. And I love that you said you embraced it. And what I also hear is you just accepted, yep, my heart's going to be in my throat. I'm going to be nervous. I'm going to be tense. And I'm still going to perform anyway. I'm going to, like you said, lock into my routine. Routine is what allows some of that stress, that tension to fade into the background to give yourself the best possibility to access the skill you've acquired. So for those of you listening, it's just a good reminder. You can't calibrate or predict exactly when that next opportunity comes. You just have to trust your preparation and lean into the routines that have prepared you for it to give yourself the chance to perform under that perceived pressure.
For sure. Like you have to acknowledge like, hey, this is a big moment. I'm feeling the pressure, but then go back and say, hey, I can handle this. I'm going to stick in my routine. I think a lot of people get in trouble because they don't acknowledge the pressure. I've read, several books, and one of them talked about a field goal kicker. It's like, oh, this isn't a big kick, or this isn't that important. Like, it's just another kick. It's like, no, it's not another kick. Like you're in the NFC Championship.
Yeah.
Like, denying that is not going to help the situation.
Yeah, I'm big. My listeners know this on word choice. I harp on the power of words. That feels like every conversation I have. But in this case, it's like I'm feeling the pressure, and that and allows both the pressure and the confidence to exist. The minimal amount of fear you might experience and the belief in yourself. They can coexist. Most people think, like you alluded to, it's one or the other. There's no pressure whatsoever, and that's just stereotypical male ego taking place. We're emotionally constipated, a generalization, but a truth. Whereas your word choice and really leaning into what Chris shared can allow both confidence and fear, or pressure and belief, to coexist, which is part of the human experience and allows you to still move forward anyway.
For sure. Yeah, totally agree with that.
I love something you said too, like kind of the theme in some of these peak performances for you is you've gone in with either no expectation or less expectation. Yet I have an imagination within your own self, inner dialogue. There's an expectation to play well, and maybe it's win, maybe it's not, it's play well. It's kind of like there's a paradox between the two. Don't expect the result, so focus on the process, yet you still got to show up with that confidence, conviction, and belief and expect to play well. How do you navigate those kind of polar opposites?
Yeah, I think you have to find confidence in your preparation and the work that you put in. But at the same time, the expectations on the course will kill you. And for me, I think a good example is just like I said before, play unapologetic golf. Because I think the worst thing you can do is like hold on the steering wheel too tight. And then you're out in a position where like, hey, I'm trying so hard to avoid hitting a bad shot. And then you hit a poor shot. And then you feel like, oh, that's the worst. I might as well have gone there confidently, hit a poor shot. Yeah. And that's kind of the feeling that I used to play a little too much when I was little, from a place of fear and avoiding. A good example is that like the first time when you start, shooting some low scores and you're like 2 or 3 under par in a junior tournament. And like my mindset was like, oh man, even if I bogey the last couple holes, I'm still going to shoot like 1 under, or even like, even if this happens, or I'm avoiding this, or the opposite, I just want it too much. And then, like I said, steer the wheel too tightly. And, for me, like I'd rather hit poor shots, but with great confidence. Like poor shots are going to happen. You have to accept that. And so if you don't accept that bad shots are going to happen, like you're not going to react well to them. And then you're going to start making decisions and have a mindset from an emotional standpoint versus like, here are the facts.
Yeah, I love the blend between expectation and acceptance. And really what I hear underneath it all is like, you're playing a different game. You're aware of the natural imperfections and mistakes that are baked into the game of golf. And because you're aware of that, you show up with a different expectation and intention. And that almost in a way frees you up to then take that energy to focus on what it is you can control. Like so many people, and I see it with a lot of the amateurs I work with, they expect perfection. They are, like you said, gripping the steering wheel, trying to control every shot in some of those bigger moments. And 9 times out of 10, it ends catastrophically for them.
Yes, for sure. And yeah, like you said it well, just going in knowing that it's not going to be perfect, but I can trust my skills and I can manage it, because golf is just, it's difficult. I think it's more difficult than people even like to give credit for. And even the pros miss-hit shots often, but they're in control. Obviously, they're the best on the planet. So they make it look easier than the rest of us. But like, I would say being able to go in with the correct expectations just puts you in the best position to perform optimally.
Yeah, really well said. Now, you've been kind enough to be vulnerable, share. You've worked with sports psychologists. You've done a lot of, or you've poured a lot of time and energy into the mental game, developing a winning mindset. Tell us a little more. At what point in your playing career did you begin to understand, these are my words, shit, I think I need some additional mindset help? And what does that journey look like? What have you learned in that process?
I started pretty young. Honestly, my parents got me in probably when I was like 11, 10 years old, just working. I worked with Glenn Albaugh at first, who was kind of a legend. And then just kind of, I felt like I've worked with quite a few people, and I've been able to take something from each one of them. And they've all been very helpful and part of my journey. And they've all had different approaches, and I've had to kind of see what worked for me, didn't work with me. I think learning about how I tick and kind of my mindset, and it has helped me more than someone that says, hey, here are these positive affirmations. Like being able to understand, like, hey, here's how I think, here's how I operate, here's what inspires me or motivates me, is like something's like, okay, I can do something with this because I know more about like how I think and how I'll react to certain situations.
Really well said. I did an episode, probably 20, 30 episodes ago at this point, but all kind of differentiating mental game of golf versus mindset. And like you alluded to, like I described the mental game of like, here's what to do and here's how to do it. It's the things we know, the breath work, the pre-shot routine, the gratitude, the positivity, the optimism, the growth mindset, all of which are skills that need to be developed. But then there's the undercurrent of the subconscious patterns. Like you mentioned, I only perform well when my back's against the wall, or I'm afraid to stand out, or I have an incongruency between success and what I deserve or what I feel I'm worthy of. That's the real meat and potato heavy lifting, that if you address that, like you alluded to, the ability to embody and apply it becomes exponentially easier and ultimately more effective.
100%. And I think another thing is like, what motivates you, or what frame of mind are you going to perform your best in? And like Tom Brady, like, or Michael Jordan, they perform well when they were motivated or anger. Yeah. Like someone said this about me, like I'm going to go prove them wrong. Some people want to go achieve things. They want to get the trophies. They want the checks. They strive. Other people are avoiding to lose. I don't want to lose my career. I don't want to do this. I don't want to feel embarrassed on TV. Yeah. And some people need to like go into a different persona when they reach the golf course. They become a different person. Mm-hmm. Maybe they're just quiet. Like a Luke Kuechly is someone that's a good example, because like the linebacker. Uh-huh. Oh, yeah, like he's unbelievable. But his teammates said like, hey, he's very quiet, like glasses, nerdy, very subdued. But then once he got on the field, he was an animal, just a beast, like a different person. And some people need that like on the golf course too.
Yeah, that's the alter ego, and that's something that's like strategically crafted. I love that you mentioned MJ, who made up countless stories about people poking at him just as fuel. And then we've got Kobe, who literally had a complete alter ego, the Black Mamba, which is, I have got a huge Black Mamba sign above my laptop right here, because that was his way of separating all of the off-the-court noise that was going on in his early 20s. They'd won a championship. He's got this infidelity scandal. How can I escape that? I've got to step into this new persona. And we saw one of the most remarkable careers ever as a result of that. But I love how you shared there's so many different approaches in a willingness to work with different experts, to take bits and pieces from them about what worked for you, but then to filter it through your own intuition and knowing of what works best for you and apply it in a way that's unique and most effective.
For sure. Yeah. Because everyone's just so unique. People, just what makes them tick is, vast. There's just so many different ways to go about it too. So people are unique.
How do you get locked in? If you maybe you apply this answer through the lens of maybe it's like your pre-round routine or pre-tournament routine from the mindset aspect, what are you doing to get you to that optimal state of mind to play your best?
Yeah, I like routine, almost like a meditative state. So for me, when I warm up or practice before a tournament round, like I'm going to get there exactly the same amount of time. I'm going to go through the same exact warm up, the same like mirror work for, the 5 minutes that I do that. And then the speed drills for 10 minutes and then going to go to the range and hit like basically the same amount of balls with each club. And then, hit a few chips, like, exactly like, 4 sets of 3 and then just to get a few of the motion, then go back to the putting green for a tee off. So I'm just doing the same thing over and over again. So whether I'm in Australia playing, whether I'm back home, my local club, fun match with the boys, or I'm going to, PGA Tour Americas or whatever. So it's like, it's the same. And for me, doing that as well as like listening to music, I enjoy doing that before the round. And I'll have like the same exact playlist every time. So it just puts you in a comfortability and almost, again, like a meditative flow state of like, okay, this is just what I do. I'm going through the, not going through the motions, but like I have purposeful intent here instead of things being different.
Frees up the cognitive bandwidth you have so you can save it for when you need it most. And I love that you mentioned music. Like that's a flow trigger. You have this preset pre-round playlist, if you will, and probably other aspects of your routine, if we dug in, that are just triggers for that flow state. They're just things you do that you associate with high performance and readying yourself to play well. And for those of you listening, we can extract that to your morning routine, to your pre-sales meeting routine, to your pre-pitch routine, to your evening routine. These routines, like Chris mentioned, they're meditative. They create this flow state where not only are you tapping into your inner intuition, power, and creativity, you're infinitely more effective with how you're spending that time and energy as well.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
You have quite a successful playing career. Eventually, we're going to transition to the incredible coaching you're doing. At the same time, I'm curious though, when you hear me say this word I'm about to share with you, like what comes up for you when you hear me say the word balance?
I would say balance is time as well as mentality. When like balancing expectations versus confidence, balancing your time, like what are you, if I sent you to the range for a couple hours, what are you doing? What is your goal with that session? How are you practicing your mental game as well? Like, instead of just going out there and hoping things are going to work out. Like, I think those are the two things that kind of come to me when I hear the word balance.
That's a unique answer. First time I've heard on the show or really kind of given extra thought to balancing expectations as one of the priorities, not just balance, the work-life balance that's thrown around everywhere on social media, but balancing expectations. Again, I come back to what I hear is like you're playing a different game. You recognize the game within the game of this beautiful game of golf. But then there's the gamification aspect of just personal development and elite performance and understanding that you get to play by your own set of rules. There's still guidelines, there's still a framework, but you get to be the one who's empowered with creating it, which ultimately helps you create the level of success you desire.
For sure. I'm not perfect at it, but I think the goal is to almost think of golf like a game of blackjack, but a very complicated one where you have these probabilities, which with every shot that's in front of you, the expectations for that, but also kind of the cards that you're given. And the more you can just think of golf from that just probability standpoint, I'm able to know the expectations and be able to like quantify that. So I don't get emotional when something's like, I have a 20% chance of pulling this off. In my mind, I feel like I have a 70%, which is unrealistic. Yeah. And then you just get really pissed off. You make poor choices afterwards because you're in this bad frame of mind, but your expectations were just skewed. So I think the more knowledgeable you are about the expectations of golf, the more that you can just be okay with outcomes.
Really well said. So you don't know this, my listeners do, but I played poker professionally for a couple of years, and just having that expectation management, understanding variance and expected win rate was a necessary skill for success. And then when I got back into golf, almost 2 years ago at this point, like it wasn't until I discovered like the decade system, Scott Fawcett, that I kind of put the two together like, oh shit, it's the same thing. And that for me personally helped alleviate a lot of unnecessary stress and frustration around the game because I got it. It's just a math contest at the end of the day.
It really is a math contest. Yeah. And you're able to kind of take advantage of that math contest if other people aren't.
Yeah, really well said. So speaking of math, like in your coaching, but also as well as in your playing, like you're known for using data, using strokes gained analytics. And I'm curious to know, like, how do you balance this data-driven approach to coaching and performance with still trusting your instinct, feel, and experience? How do they marry together to produce the optimal result?
Yeah, for me, it just feels natural. Like I believe it does, and because I'm just combining really like trusting my skills with what math tells me. And so like a good example is, putts outside 22 to 25 feet. Like I just have been able to accept like those aren't high percentage make putts. Like I'm not going out there trying to make those putts, whether they're, 25 to 30 feet. Like if they happen to go in, total bonus, but just being okay with, hey, I'm going to trust my speed, my skill. I'm just not going to three putt those. I can get it within 10% of the hole, 2.5 feet, short or long. And eventually some of them are going to go in. I'm going to trust the math that it's going to work out, combined with my skill to be able to do that and pull that off. And so, I think it's the better you are at golf, like the more that payoff can be of managing your expectations, the numbers and how to play it. And then eventually like it's a game of variance. Like you said, like you're going to go on runs, things are going to start bouncing your way over the course of time. And if you just start playing golf from I'm just going to make the right decision over and over and over again, like you're going to have good results for what you're capable of.
I haven't had nearly the extent of a heater on the golf course that you've ever had, but I've had some fun heaters in poker. And yeah, they're a thrill ride to say the least when everything's falling your way and those 2% chances are hitting. So yeah, I hear you there. For the listener who's a bit resistant to leaning into the data, the numbers, how do you begin to meet them where they're at to really open their mind to just how much benefit is within the data?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could just tell them like I've done it both ways. I've played golf just saying, hey, I've got talent and I'm just going to figure it out. I'm just going to go out these pins. I'm going to pick targets on how I feel. Do I feel confident? Do I not feel confident? And once you've kind of been on the other side of the fence, you're just like, oh, wow, why did I ever do that? Like, it's just not optimal, And so I think you can relate to people like, hey, do you want to play optimally or not? Would you rather play darts like blindfolded or not? Like you can still throw some good darts. You may get lucky. You might still have fun, but you're not going to play to like the height of what you can be. And golf's a sport where, most people are spending a lot of time, money, energy. So it's like, why not take that next step? If you're going to do all this stuff to play good golf, like go take that extra, half a mile and just dive into it.
Yeah. And I think too, like what I would encourage you for those of you listening is like, what is through a lens of curiosity, why are you resistant to change? Like, what is the fear there? And that can just be a powerful prompt for a deeper reflection, understanding of why you're not capitalizing on, whether AI or otherwise, this data designed to help you improve at a much faster rate. What is the resistance to embracing it, utilizing it, or asking for help to better understand how it can ultimately help you?
For sure. And I think golf's a sport where it does humble you. Like it's good to ask questions and, lean on other people or lean on data. Because I think another fault is, being overconfident that, hey, I can handle all this. Like there's a difference in confidence and then being cocky that, hey, I'm resistant to change. I don't want to do anything. Where golf's difficult, man.
And I meant to ask you this earlier, so I'm glad you brought this up. You mentioned before you shot that bogey-free tournament, you had played some of your worst professional golf a week before. I hear bounce back. I hear resiliency. I hear an ability to overcome adversity. Like, how do you describe that ability, or what was that process like for you to go from one of your lowest of lows to still bounce back and give yourself the best opportunity to play well?
Yeah, I think there's just a belief in that, like, hey, I can do this. I trust my skills. B, sometimes like when you hit rock bottom, that's kind of a good thing. It forces change. I think some of the worst places to be is just right around just below baseline, because it's like it's not bad enough to like shape and change our thinking or strategy or trying to get better. But when things are like, oh man, this was a terrible event, or you've had a terrible month, either trust what you're doing, or B, like that's kind of a time to like, hey, maybe we need to make some adjustments and kind of get lights a fire in you. So for me, that's kind of been in my career, a good place for me is when I've hit like terrible rock bottoms, because then I'll bounce from there.
Yeah, I love that. So I hear you really prioritize some form of reflection at a fairly frequent cadence. Now, who in your corner, and you don't have to go by names, but it's like, what are the people from a support standpoint that you lean on to get that candid outside feedback? Like, what does that relationship look like, and how important has external coaching and mentorship been to your success?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely leaned on and continue to lean on, sports psychologists or just mentors, coaches, swing coaches that have been there and done that. And even if it's someone to be a sounding board, it's good to just have conversations.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
just so important. I mean, it's almost kind of like a therapy, but yeah, I mean, golf definitely, especially high stress situations when you're talking about like it's your profession and your livelihood's on the line. Like that's also very different kind of stress, and things that obviously go downhill mentally when you're playing bad, because it's great when it's good, but when it's bad, it's like you definitely need people to lean on.
Where in your ability to handle this pressure to perform at your best when you need it most, where have you improved since your early professional playing days to now? And what does that process look like?
Yeah, the process just looked like training it and being in the fire enough
Okay.
to where you just know what to expect and how to react. um, I would say, again, just kind of the work of managing expectations and just the work that I've done outside of, those big moments have kind of helped me in my career. Yeah, that's what I would say about that.
When you think of some of the habits, and I'll use this term loosely, that fall under kind of the mental game or mindset umbrella, maybe it's journaling, it's meditation, it's breath work, or anything under that realm, What which one of those habits do you most attribute your ability to continue to demonstrate this resiliency and this persistence to all of these years?
It's a good question. I would say like reflecting afterwards
Okay. Yeah.
has helped, um, whether that is journaling or I like to do voice notes as well when
Mhm.
things are good or bad. You kind of, even looking back a year or two ago, you can really see, what was I saying, but also how was I saying it?
Yeah.
How was my voice? Like, was I confident? Was I just like hemming and hawing? Like, I don't know. Like, hopefully it works out, or I'm in this tough spot. Like just being able to reflect and have those almost like a library is very good to have. I think especially when things are good, to look back and see how was I talking. But yeah, after the round is a great time to reflect on how are my processes, how are my targets, how was my inner dialogue. Okay, here was this specific hole. Here's what I was thinking. Was I was either being too aggressive, or I was trying to be avoidance and hey, don't hit it here. I think you have to be aware. So I would say my awareness has just gotten much more heightened, which that comes from just experience and practice.
But I think you shared one of the most overlooked low-hanging fruits of the journaling practice, whether voice note journaling or actually writing things down, is reviewing past entries. in my opinion, that is where the gold is. That is where you are more effective at spotting patterns and trends so you can quickly do the work necessary to break those cycles. So I love that you shared that. Admittedly, it's something I'm still working on, is setting aside time. Like, go look at last year's entries. What were you doing in your life 6 months, 12 months ago? Because so often, and this concept is not mine, people fall into this gap mentality. There's this concept known as the gap in the gain. We're constantly trying to get somewhere, but we constantly feel we have so far to go. There's a gap about where we want to be compared to where we are. Yet when we reflect and look backwards, we see all that we've gained, all of the progress we've made, which is validating, inspiring, and continues to keep that spark of passion and motivation stronger than ever before.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's definitely a journey. And, I know Scott's said it before, but with like meditation, be able to practice that, you're not going to feel the benefits for a very long time. And then suddenly it's like, hey, I'm grasping this. I can do it outside of when someone guides me through it. And some of that is kind of similar to golf and understanding your mentality, be able to track that and be aware of what you're what you're saying to yourself on the golf course and how to correct it. Some of this stuff takes time, but if you don't monitor it or keep track of it, like, good luck with trying to improve.
Yeah, incredibly well said. There's got to be the attention to detail, the consistency in collecting that data to make data-driven decisions, also mixed in with your intuition, your experience, and like you said so well, leaning on your trusted room of coaches and advisors and mentors to make the decision that's best for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell us a little bit more. You do spend a lot of your time when you're not training for the PGA Tour of America's, Korn Ferry, and then hopefully sooner rather than later the PGA Tour. You're coaching, you're teaching, you're building other athletes, you're tackling that from multiple angles. Tell us a little bit more about your coaching and specifically like where and how you stand out amongst the other coaches.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I stand out just based on my experience and, I guess the heights I've played in professional golf. And my journey, I mean, as far as juniors, like, I've been down that road. I've been in their shoes, and like, I've been in a position where I've tried everything, and, like, I've tried everything that doesn't work. I've tried everything that does work, just from whether it's strokes gained, whether it's how to operate, how to prepare for events, as well as, some mental stuff as well, discipline. And so as someone that's lived it and tried everything for 15 years in trial and error, like, I know what works and what doesn't work. And so being able to have a resource like that, I wish I had that when, I was 15 instead of, trial and error for years or hundreds of different, things or coaches or whatever. And so, a lot of what I do is obviously strokes gain and get people to play better golf without touching their swing, which, I've been able to do, which is really fun. It's really rewarding. But there's also like the competitive aspect of like, here are my processes, whether they're practice rounds, how to handle what to do after an event, what are you doing with your clubs throughout the year? Just these little things that add up that can easily slip through the cracks that can make a difference between, playing Division I versus playing Division II golf. Like, people are the skill level is very high right now. And like, the difference of a shot and a half a round is massive, especially for juniors, let alone other clients that are guys that are just at their country club trying to win the championship or, PGA America pros, guys like that. So yeah, it's fun.
Absolutely. I love that. So imagine this. There is a billboard centrally located on a golf course so that it's visible from all 18 tee boxes. Let's add another layer. It's the last day of a tournament. Maybe it's the club championship. Maybe it's member guest. Maybe it's the tour event, PGA Tour America, Korn Ferry, PGA, or otherwise. You have an opportunity to write a message on that billboard so it's visible for all golfers. What's the message you're sharing?
My message is lean on your routine. Or I could say lean on your pre-shot routine. Because that's something that you ought to practice, but it also is such a identifier of what your internal thoughts are. Are they spiraling out of control? Are you thinking about other things outside this golf shot? And so there could be a bunch of stuff on this on this billboard, but I think simply like having, leaning on your pre-shot routine is just such a quick, hey, let's get back grounded, because, I could talk about examples of, Tiger Woods and how incredible his routine was. And it's like, man, he's thinking about the right things. He's thinking about his target. He's not thinking about any expectation or where he is. And then, I've done a video about Rory and him at the 2024 US Open, the final day, and the difference of his routine in the first 11, 12 holes versus what happened to him on 14 and 13 and on. His routine completely changed. And it's just like such a black and white example of like, oh, his pre-shot routine completely changed. He's thinking about winning the golf tournament. The media, Brandel Chambly's going to finally get off his back for the last 12 years. You know, like it's very easy to see when someone's routine changes that something else is going on in your head that's probably most likely not productive.
That is an outstanding approach to utilize your pre-shot routine as an awareness, a piece of feedback about what's going on. That's incredible. Really well said, Chris. And for those of you listening, like it is member guest time a year for a lot of places. Just start to be on the lookout of your playing partners, your competitors. I think that's fascinating, the way you frame that. So thank you for sharing that.
Well, think about the Tiger Woods effect. Remember that back in the day? I mean, that's pretty much what that was, is players were intimidated by Tiger. They were out of their routine and they were just thinking about everything with Tiger and like, oh my gosh, am I going to beat this guy, or this guy's unbeatable, or all this other stuff than what they should have been focused on, their targets, their processes. And even Tiger, I think, has mentioned a couple of times, like, once I saw my competitor take an extra look or an extra waggle, I knew they were screwed. Like, that was it.
Yeah.
So not only was Tiger better than them, but he was just mentally on a different level, and he was just able to just even see his competitors like, oh, well, he's done.
Yeah, when you're winning a golf tournament, a major by almost 20 strokes or 20 strokes, something's different.
Yeah.
Something's different. Chris, where can my listeners go to learn more about you, to connect with you, learn about working with you?
Yeah, my website, courseofactiongolf.com, has, everything there. I'm on Instagram as well at Chris Petefish Golf. Feel free to message me, but I do all kinds of work. Most I'm trying to fill this program called the Fish Tank, which is kind of a minimum 3-month mentorship where we go everything about your strokes gain numbers. But again, like I talked about before, is how do you operate, trying to be more like professional, or just, get the best out of yourself, whether it's, I just want to play better scores, or I want to play a D1 golf, or I want to play on the PGA Tour.
I imagine it's almost like a high performance playbook based on all of your experience and successes in a way. And I think if you are serious about competitive golf, you'd be foolish not to go check that out and to connect with Chris.
Yeah, no, that's definitely the goal and why I'm doing it, because I've lived that it works and it's fun to help people.
Yeah. Well, Chris, this was an absolute pleasure. I really appreciate the time.
Yeah, no, appreciate you. It's been really fun to talk about the mental side. I mean, I love the number side, but I'm just as, intrigued by the mentality and the sports psychology, and because things happen out there on the golf course. There's a lot to talk about.
Yeah, it's a fascinating world, which is why I talk about it twice a week, every week on the show here. So thank you again. For those of you listening, thank you for tuning into another episode. So much gold, so much wisdom and different perspectives to be gleaned from this conversation with Chris. So not only do I strongly encourage you to go listen to it twice and take notes, go share it with a friend, a fellow golfer, to help others play better golf by getting out of their own way. And if you haven't done so already, it takes 30 seconds to leave a genuine rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening to today's show. Thank you again for listening. Have a great rest of your week. Hit them straight this weekend, and we'll catch you in the next episode.